Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com, and we're back with this week's new comic book reviews. Now, before we get to the reviews, there's a couple things going on. Not bad things, but actually things that are affecting the comic book industry right now. So there's a bit of a paper shortage, and so that is creating delays in books. So it's across, it has nothing to do with like specific publishers or anything. It's across the board, because most books are not printed in the US. So there's shipping issues. If they're printed in China, they're generally right now sitting on a boat outside Long Beach Harbor because there's so much stuff backed up that includes, everything at this point. So it's affecting everything. So each week there's books. There was supposed to be a new Spawn book this week. I think it was the Gunslinger Spawn. Just is delayed. It's delayed like a week or two because of this. So this is going to be an ongoing thing. So this week, like last week, is a little bit smaller, and it's going to continue to be kind of chaotic. So there's going to be books that you think might have come out in a particular week, but have not. The Spawn's a good example. It was supposed to ship this week. Nobody got it. It's not just like an East Coast, West Coast, certain comic shops. No, nobody got that book. So so if you go to your local retailer and there are books that you're looking for that theoretically are supposed to be out, just don't give them a hard time. It has nothing to do with them. It's an industry problem, not just for, it's for books and everything. It's the type of paper that books are printed on. That's one of and it's also affecting cardboard boxes. That's another thing. So anyways, so just, that's kind of an FYI to let you know what's going on within the comic industry right now. So we're going to get to the reviews. I do want to say I'm not reviewing this, but I did want to point it out because it did come out this week. There's a new, Reckless book, hardcover book. This one's Destroy All Monsters. It's an original graphic novel. It's written by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to read it because I really want to take the time to sit down with it. But I just wanted to point it out because it did come out this week. But I can safely say without even reading it, it's going to be amazing. Those two are just always top-notch doing these noir novels, and they're always a treat. And if your comic shop pre-ordered it, they usually send a certain amount of signed book plates to go with it. So if you're lucky enough to get it, hopefully this week, you can get one of the signed book plates, and I'll show you. So there is the signed book plate by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. So check that out and see if, not only check out, buy the book. It's always, those are always great books, but see if your bookstore has one of the signed book plates that can go with it. So now we're going to get to the regular comics. So now that we've gotten those things out of the way, we're going to get to the regular stuff that actually showed up this week. First up is Catwoman Lonely City #1, written, drawn, lettered, and colored by Cliff Chiang. So Cliff's been working, he's been working on this book for quite a while. He's been teasing it for a long time, but it finally got announced, and now we get to see the fruits of his labor. And I must say, this book is really amazing. I mean, we all know that Cliff Chiang is just a brilliant artist, but he's a really good writer. And what's interesting is, so this is I term it like it's an Elsewhere type story. It's under the Black label, but it's a story that, it takes place in the future. Selina is 55. Batman's dead. Robin's dead. Pretty much almost everybody's dead. Barbara's still alive. She's about the only one. So Selina has been in jail, and she's now 55. And the other thing is, Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, is the mayor of Gotham. So there's a lot to take in because, it starts off where she gets out of prison. She goes back to her apartment, which has, the area's been destroyed pretty much because of what happened with the death of Batman and that fallout. But she still has all her apartment, all her stuff's there, all her Catwoman outfits are there. And so she's trying to kind of rebuild her life, but she also wants to, try not to I don't want to give too much away of the story, but basically she's trying to rebuild her life. It's not going so well, so she's going back to a life of crime. And that is kind of not working out so well because she's 55 and her, her knees are shot and all this other, back's killing her. So it's really, Chang has done a really interesting thing here. He's developed a great story about Selena. That is really the key to why this book is so good, because it really is a story about Selena. It's, obviously she's Catwoman, but it's about, trying to make up for mistakes that she's made, trying to put her life back together. There's lots of things, and it's really, I think that's what makes the story so interesting, is there's all those elements that come together so well in the story. And then on top of that, you have his absolutely gorgeous artwork. He's a brilliant artist, and he really brings it here on this one. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful, story with brilliant artwork. It's absolutely gorgeous. And then you have, he's doing the coloring and lettering. It's the full package. It's one of those rare instances where it's a single creator doing the whole thing. And it's absolutely amazing. And this is only the first issue. So I believe there's 3 issues. I can't wait. This is truly a must read. This is good. This is just almost brilliant. I'd have to say, even just this first issue is absolutely brilliant. It literally took my breath away. It was just beautiful, and it's the highest recommendation this week for sure. That definitely must buy. Next up, we have A Refrigerator Full of Heads, #1, written by Rio Yours, with artwork by Tom Fowler. Now, this is one of the Hill House. This is there were 4 Hill House books that came out. They're curated by Joe Hill. So this is like the newest miniseries to come out that's not written. But now, there was a Basket Full of Heads that was written by Joe Hill. Now this one's not, but it's actually very interesting. So it's kind of the same. It's the same theory in the sense of, in Basket Full of Heads, if you use a mythical, axe or knife or a sword or whatever to basically kill, when you kill them. Like, you cut somebody's head off, the head's still alive. So it's the same here. It's the same basic premise from how a Basket Full of Heads, but it's a different story. It's the same theory, different story. Now, you don't have to have read that one to understand this. Yours sets the story up fine. You actually, know exactly what's going on. So you don't need to read that. I do highly recommend. Those are really, any of the Hill House books are brilliant. But what's great is this really captures horror. It's been quite a while since we've had a good slew of horror books, and the Hill House ones are really, really great. And this one really just adds nicely to that, 4 that have already been out. It's a great story. There's a shark. He gets his head cut off. So guess what? That doesn't work out well. It's really a wonderful story. It's really a lot of fun. It has a nice sly sense of humor. It's got some real nice gore and some horror. So it'll be really interesting. The first issue is a great kickoff. Like I said, Yours script is really good. Fowler's artwork is really, really nice. I love it. And the shark scene will blow you away. It's just absolutely just gorgeous artwork that just really pops. And this is only the first issue. So if you're a horror fan, this is really good. If I wouldn't say it's too bloody. It's not like you can't, it's too much, but it really is quite good. So I really, really check it out. And I also recommend any of the other previous Hill House books. They're really, really good. Next up is Nubia and the Amazons, #1, written by Stephanie Williams and Vita Ilea, with art, with penciler, Athea Martinez, and inks by Mark Morales. Now, this book is one of the books that is setting up the Trial of the Amazons is coming next year. It's a big kind of celebration of Wonder Woman, because this is her 80th anniversary. So this is one of the books that's going to tie into that series, or that crossover that's coming next year. What's interesting about Nubia is actually, she's been around for quite a while, but up until recently, she hasn't been used a lot. But DC, thankfully, has been using her. So the Queen has left. She's in the man's world. And so Nubia is now running Themyscira. So that's what this is. So what it is there's a well when women who have died in the real world come to Themyscira to live. So what it is there hasn't been any women come through the portal in like a long time. And then all of a sudden, like, these women show up. So it's very unusual. So there's something going on, and that's the basic setup here with the story. It's interesting because I liked it. I didn't quite love it. And I think where I struggled a bit is this first issue is really exposition heavy. There's a lot of exposition, but it's also like there's not a lot to kind of get into in this first issue. It's almost like if this would be like the first half of a bigger issue. I think that's where I struggle a little bit, because it's not that it's bad. It's just there's kind of more, and you feel like you didn't. I wasn't satisfied enough with this first issue. I did like what I read. I just felt undersatisfied with how it kind of unfolded as a first issue. That being said, I think it's definitely worth checking out if you're interested in the character, if you're not really familiar with Nubia, because they do a nice job of setting her up and everything, and setting up this story. It's just that there's kind of not a lot going in this first issue to grab you too much. I will say Martinez and Morales' artwork is actually really, really nice, and there's some really, really, really nice pages and stuff. It's mostly people standing around talking, so if you could pull that off, you're a pretty good artist. So I think it's kind of worth checking out, but I'm a little hesitant on how it's going to go. I liked it, I just didn't quite love it. Next up, we have Batman Secret Files, Peacekeeper 01, #1, written by Ed Brisson, with a plot by Ed Brisson and James Tynion IV, and artwork by Joshua Hickson. Now, I have not been reading Fear State. I'm kind of crossover and all that kind of stuff. I'm kind of wiped out on Batman right now. As far as the regular books go, I don't want to read 14 books a month. But they are doing these one shots, and there was like a punchline that was okay. But this one's actually surprisingly good, in the sense of it just has to do with Peacekeeper, and it really is his origin story, which is quite interesting because it goes back to pre Jim Gordon Gotham PD, how in a way the sort of the police mafia, kind of, they all work together to run Gotham. And of course, when Jim Gordon shows up, he fires all of them. So Peacekeeper is the son of one of those police officers that was one of the corrupt police officers. So that's his basic premise of his origin. And it's really quite interesting. Even though, the nice thing about these standalones is they do stand alone. It's really a one and done, because it's his origin story. So in that respect, even if you're not reading the main book, this is actually surprisingly a good story. I will say, Brisson does a really nice job, and I think the interesting thing is how he delves into the past of the Gotham PD and, all that kind of stuff. And Hickson's artwork is really, really nice. At first glance, this is not a knock at all. I thought it was Francisco Francavilla, but Hickson has a similar style, but it's also very different. It's really, the artwork, I love the artwork. It's really gritty, and it fits the story like a glove. It's really, really beautiful stuff. So if you're reading the regular Batman books, you're probably going to pick this up. If you're like me and haven't been reading, these are perfectly fine to pick up. It's a nice story. I was kind of surprised, and it works pretty well. Next up, we have Maw #2. Written by Jude Ellison S. Doyle, with artwork by A.L. Kaplan. Now, the first issue, I wasn't quite overwhelmed, but I think there was an interesting story. So what it is there's this, it's not an island, it's like a getaway beach area where women who have been raped and abused go to, like, reinvent themselves. That's kind of the roughest way I can explain it. So what it is, these two women have gone there, and we're not quite sure why they're going there beyond, that sort of thing. Now, what's interesting is, and it is, you should be warned that it does deal with that sort of subject matter. So it may be a trigger for some people. So be cautious about buying this book if that concerns you. They don't, I will say that Doyle really deals with that whole issue very well. He handles it quite nicely in the sense of it's a major part of the story, but I don't think so far in the first 2 issues, I haven't found anything gratuitous or anything like that. Now, once again, everybody's different, but as far as like me, I found it, I find it really interesting. And I think this second issue unfolded from the first one a bit, pretty well. It kept the pace going and everything. Like I kind of said with the first issue, I like it. I'm just not sure how much beyond that. Kaplan's artwork is actually really nice and complements the story really well. Because once again, it's mostly people talking. There's not a lot of action in this type of book. It's a nice book. I'm in the second issue in, and I'm not totally sold, but I'm not like I need to bail. So that's kind of where it's at. With this book. I think it's interesting. I'm just not quite sure how I feel about it so far. Next up, we have The Death of Doctor Strange, #2, written by Jed MacKay with artwork by Lee Garbett. Now, I was actually pretty surprised by the first issue of this, mostly because I'm not a huge reader of Marvel books. It really, you have to impress me with a Marvel book. And I actually was surprised by the first issue. I think it was paced well and everything. It had a great cliffhanger. And then the second issue, I was excited to read, and it's fine, but there's a certain point, it kind of felt like it just fell into like an average superhero story, and I didn't really feel that in the first one. So this one, so a bit of a spoiler if you haven't read the first issue. So I'm letting you know it's a spoiler that Doctor Strange does die in the first one, but what it is he's created a older image, like the 60s version of him, that has a week to figure out. He has 7 days to figure out how he died. So that's the basic premise. So now we have the Doctor Strange is dead, but he's still alive trying to figure out his murder. But, and that's all interesting, but then it turns into like these other mythical characters come, and we don't know if they were the ones that killed him, but they're coming after him, and then the Avengers show up, and it kind of just turns like, I don't know, kind of an average superhero book in a way. And it really didn't, it kind of put me off a little bit. I mean, I'll give the third issue a try, but I wasn't overwhelmed with the second issue. It really felt like it just slid into something kind of average, where the first issue kind of like, oh, this is interesting. The one thing I do really like is Garbett's artwork. He's really good. He recently did Shadowcraft book. The artwork was really nice. The artwork's really nice here. It's just the story, I just kind of felt lost it in the second issue. Now it's possible maybe it's just me, but we'll see how the third issue goes. And I'm not reading all the side stories. Screw all that stuff. I'll just read the main story, and that's how this is gonna go. Because there's a bunch of there's an Avengers, Death of the Avengers that crossover. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Just this should work as the miniseries, and if you want to read the other stuff. So we'll see how the third issue goes. We'll kind of leave it at that. So next up we have Batman versus Bigby, A Wolf in Gotham #2. Written by Bill Willingham with pencils by Brian Level and inks by Jay Liston. Now, I wasn't actually super overwhelmed with the first issue, and I'm a huge Fables fan, so that was, I wouldn't say it was disappointing. It didn't quite gel the way I wished it to. Well, I will say the second issue definitely comes together a lot better. In hindsight, I guess you could say that the first issue was a little bit kind of exposition heavy and didn't quite move the story maybe as well as it should have. But the second issue really not only picks up the pace, but really picks up the movement of the story, where there's still exposition. We don't quite know what's going on. We know that Bigby is a wolf, but he's not the wolf. So that's interesting. And then this, the second issue, we really kind of get more, we start getting more of the Batman with Bigby and how that's kind of coming together. It's still set in Gotham, so there's not much Fables stuff beyond Bigby that we've really seen yet. So it'll be interesting to see how Willingham, if he's going to bring more of that into, or maybe they go to Fables town. So that'll be interesting to see. But I will say, like I said, this is the second issue picked up, and Level and Leaston's artwork actually. I like the first issue. I think this one actually was a little bit better. I think they really pulled it off. It could have been the way the story was in the first one. I don't know. Maybe because that first issue didn't quite gel 100% with me. But I will say I do like their artwork, and I think they've really, like, it's a good looking book. So if you're a fan of Fables, I think, you know, now we can say, okay, it's moving along. I think we can kind of check in with it. Next up, we have Suicide Squad King Shark #2, written by Tim Seeley, with artwork by Scott Collins. Now, of course, this is kind of coming on the heels. This was a digital first, but this is the first time in print that we're seeing, because obviously King Shark was, you know, kind of a big thing in the Suicide Squad movie. Now, they're obviously, you know, if you haven't read King Shark before, he has a kind of a sense of humor, but he's not kind of dumb as bricks like he is in the movie. So he definitely has a lot more dialogue here instead of like, and so what's interesting is Seeley, you know, the thing about this, it's just kind of silly fun. So what it is, it's basically Thunderdome for monsters. And so King Shark is having to battle other contestants to try to win this thing, you know. And so that's the basic premise here. So this one, they actually get into the Thunderdome type situation. And I will not spoil it, but there's an absolutely brilliant way that you can trigger King Shark to go batshit crazy, and it's hilarious. And I really give props to Seeley for putting that all together. And it really is, you know, I like I said, this is not art by any stretch of the imagination. It's a fun little book. If you're a fan of Suicide Squad, or you like King Shark, you know, looking for King Shark, this is definitely, you know, up your alley. Then Scott Collins' artwork is actually really quite nice. He does a really good job. There's a lot of times where people are just standing around talking, but man, when he gets to the battles, he really brings it. And it's a really nice looking book. It's not, once again, it's not going to set the world on fire, but it's fun for it. It's exactly what you expect it is, and on that level, it works well. Next up, we have Not All Robots #3, written by Mark Russell with artwork by Mike Deodato Jr. I'll say it again. I'm a big fan of Mark Russell. You know this. You should be picking this book up, but we'll still review it. So at this point, there's been there's now the civil war of the robots and the humans. So the company that makes the robots are now introducing the really humanistic looking and acting robots. And so now they're being introduced. So people are now like, hey, I'll buy this really fancy one that's like basically human, but a robot. And then you have the robots that are robots. They're losing their jobs. They're getting beat up in the streets. It's a mess. So once again, it's Russell is just nailing the social commentary. There's so much subtext in this book that's really interesting, because there's the whole surface thing of robots and versus, you know, how they're taking, how technology in a way is really taking over the world, and how in this story, how it's being handled, because there's also pretty much the world. If you live outside the dome, you're dead, of the city. So, you know, there's a lot going on, and Russell really he balances everything out. And it's just the way that the story is paced. It's so deep, you know, there's so much depth to the story. It's really amazing. And then Deodato Jr., like I said, this book has really impressed me, because this is, you know, he's a good artist. There's no gray area about that. But this is a book that's very much outside of his usual wheelhouse of like artwork and type of books that he usually does, and he really is bringing it. And it really, and not only is it a great looking book, but he brings so much heft because of the artwork just really has so much depth and look and feel that it really pulls this book together. This is really a really damn good book. And from what the one downside to AWA is they don't really reprint it. So if you've missed this book, I really just wait for the trade. But if your comic shop still has like the first 2 issues, the 3rd issue came out, definitely pick this. This is a must-buy book. This is really, really good. Next up, we have Shazam #4, written by Tim Sheridan with artwork by Clayton Henry. So this finishes the miniseries. This is the last issue. So we kind of find out why Shazam has not been having his powers, because the Rock of Eternity is in hell. So we kind of find out not so much who's behind it, but who's involved with it, and it's Black Adam. Now, we knew this from the last issue, so what this issue really deals with is like how Shazam and Black Adam can put everything back together. That's really what needs to be done. I did enjoy this miniseries. The only gripe I do have is that this story will continue in the Teen Titans book, which I really would have liked to have this kind of wrap up on its own. I'm not a big fan of, if they wanted to do this miniseries within that series, that would be fine. But when you're doing a miniseries, I think it should stand on its own. Now, I don't think the ending of this is fatal. It does end the story. It's just that there are threads of the story that are going to continue in Teen Titans. And I just don't know that, for me, that was the wisest idea. I mean, I know that they're trying to get readers to go over to New Teen Titans because that's where Shazam is. But I would have liked to have this stand on its own. But it's certainly, that is not fatal. Sheridan did a really good job of not only capturing the heroics, he captures the humor, and he understands that Shazam is actually Billy inside. So he's that kid stuck inside the super body. So, he does that well. Clayton Henry's artwork is absolutely gorgeous. This is a damn good looking book. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. And if it comes out as a trade, if you're a fan of Shazam, I think it's worth checking out. Once again, I don't think the ending's fatal. I just was a little disappointed in it, but I had fun with it, and it was a nice superhero book. Next up, we have Nightwing 85, written by Tom Taylor with artwork by Robbie Rodriguez. Now, this is the second part of the Fear State crossover. So if you've been a regular Nightwing fan, it's okay. We're going to get back to the regular Bloodhaven storyline. So this is kind of a pit stop over to Gotham. And once again, you go back to these crossovers. It's fine. But the thing is, I'm not going to read the rest of the Fear State. So these are nice and everything, but ultimately the story doesn't really do a lot for me because I'm buying it for Nightwing, not Fear State. But with that being said, I think Tom Taylor handled it pretty well in the sense of he puts the other story, the regular Nightwing story on hold. There's this kind of crossover, and then we'll get back to the regular story. So if you've been a regular reader, I wasn't insulted because since he put the main story on hold to avoid any, crossover or anything. This is just, these are part of the Fear State. They're not terrible. They're fine for what they are. But like I said, it's a little bit annoying in that respect, but that's out of Tom Taylor's hand, but I think he handled the best he could. Robbie Rodriguez does a really nice job, although we all miss Bruno Redondo, but he'll be back next issue. But Rodriguez does a nice job. He does a nice job on the artwork. It does its job well. So once again, I think really the excitement is going to be the next issue of Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo's Nightwing. This was just kind of a pit stop. Not great, not terrible. It's okay. Next up, we have Batman Catwoman number 8, written by Tom King with artwork by Liam Sharp. Now, this continues. This is interesting because this is the second issue that Liam Sharp has done. And first of all, I love Liam Sharp's artwork. It's just absolutely brilliant. And he really brings what's interesting is he brings a much more kind of darker horror tone to the story that is there in the story, but the the way he brings the artwork, actually, these last couple of issues, especially this issues, there's some really creepy stuff going on, uh, Sharp just nails it. I mean, I don't know if this was planned or anything. I mean, because King's writing the story. This was a 12-issue miniseries, but overall, like, I'm really enjoying this. It's been a lot of fun. It's a good story. The artwork's been great, and you know, bringing Liam Sharp has just really been fantastic. I've really been enjoying this, and really, honestly, have missed Tom King on Batman. Although he's done some other great stuff. I mean, he's finished up Rorschach. He finished up Strange Adventure. He's going to be working on the Human Target, so check those books out. But this one is still really, I really look forward to this. And like I said, you have Liam Sharp's artwork that's just knocking it out of the park, and this is just really, really good. And I love how this is telling the story of Catwoman, and how it's more of a Catwoman story than Batman. And that's what makes it really interesting. Batman's kind of a backup character in the whole thing. It's pretty much her and the Joker. So it's good stuff. I enjoy it. And finally, we have Suicide Squad number 8, written by Robbie Thompson. So this issue has 2 pencilers. There's Eduardo Pancia, who pencils, and Julio Fiera inks his pencils. And then Dexter Stoy pencils and inks the other part of the issue. So this is the last part of the Suicide Squad going to hell with Ambush Bug. That is the main reason I've been picking up. I'm a huge Ambush Bug fan. It goes back to Ambush Bug days of the 80s. And it's actually been a really fun story, and I think I really have to give it to Thompson. He has handled Ambush Bug quite well. Once again, that is why I've been buying the book. And I love the fact that, like, this issue, there's a lot of, like, narration, and it's totally Ambush Bug dialogue of the narration. And that's why I really give props to Thompson for nailing that, because he has done his homework where it feels like Ambush Bug, and that's a big key. And so overall, the story has been, it's fine. It's a Suicide Squad story. In that respect, it's been fun for a while it lasted. I probably won't, you know, if Ambush Bug stays, I might stay with the book. But if this is just kind of a, you know, 3-part story, I'll probably bail on it. Not that I hate the Suicide Squad. There's just a lot of books out there. But I will say I've enjoyed this 3-issue run. It's been a good Suicide Squad story, and then you have Ambush Bug. The artwork by Pancia and Soy and Fiera is actually really nice. It does the job, and they have set up some things that are going to continue in the regular story. Like I said, I think Thompson's been doing a good job with the Suicide Squad. I think I liked the first few issues, but it didn't quite hit me. But these last few issues have been good, so maybe he's just kind of finally hit his groove. So that's going to do it this week. Another light week, which is kind of nice. I will say I will do a review separately of Destroy All Monsters. I want to do that by itself because it's very those are very special books, and I think they kind of deserve their own kind of review on the side because they're much more than a regular comic. So as always, public service announcement: I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach, California. Ryan runs a great store. Annie and Eduardo are just top notch. They offer discounts. They offer pool service. They offer 30% off their trades and graphic novels. It's a really good store. And the other thing that not only makes it is the customers. There's a great, if you get a chance, go to their Facebook page. They have a group page. There's everybody kind of jumps in, post stuff. It's just a lot of fun. It's a great place to go to and hang out and talk to other comic fans. It's a great store. There is a sister store in Culver City, Pulp Fiction Culver City, run by Chris and her team. They're separate stores, but they're same name. There was a previous owner that had both stores. Separate owners now, but still, Chris runs a good store up there. Once again, offers a good pull service, offers discounts on trades and graphic novels. And if you're in the LA area, they're 2 really great comic book stores that I recommend. So once again, as always, please get vaccinated. Please be safe out there. Stay healthy. And as we always say, please be kind. Kindness goes a long way. Things are still a little tough out there. There's a lot of, a lot of tough things going on in the world. So being kind to one another, not only in person, but online, be kind. and just kindness goes a long way. You can really make somebody's day by being kind. And so it's just a good thing. So let's call it a week. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you subscribe and like our YouTube channel. And we'll see you again next week. So everybody take care of yourself, be kind. And this is Steven from Pop Culture Maven signing out. Have a good one. Bye-bye.